Hello again. This is Andy Nicol, the course tutor for the Perfectly Spoken Advanced course, and this is lesson 35 in the course, which is a review lesson, review number 7, which looks at what we covered in lessons 31 to 34. As always, this is level C1 in the Common European Framework. And the equivalent, more or less, in IELTS is 7.5 if you're more familiar with the IELTS system. So, what are we going to look at? Well, we're going to review, again, the grammar area of verb patterns we looked at in lesson 31, transitive and intransitive verbs. Lesson 33, verbs plus object plus gerund infinitive, and so on. We'll also look at the vocabulary of work, which we looked at in lesson 32, and the vocabulary from the last lesson on war and warfare. Okay, so without further ado, let's have a look first of all at verb patterns, transitive and intransitive verbs. Remember, transitive means that the verb takes an object, intransitive means it doesn't. So here we go. Which is correct? Could you pass the salt me? Or could you pass me the salt? Which of these is not correct, I should say? Which is not correct? And it's, of course, could you pass the salt me is not correct. The answer is, could you pass me the salt? We put the person before the thing in terms of the object, okay? Do you want to know what happened? Do you want to know what happened me? Happened is intransitive, so you have to get rid of that one. Okay, do you want to know what happened? The dog's bark frightened us. The dog's bark frightened. Frighten is transitive. It needs an object, so we have to get rid of the second one. So the dog bark, ruff, frightened us. And the next one, my dog died earlier this year and I miss him a lot. Oh, this is actually true. I lost my dog Dougal earlier this year. We had him for about 10 years. Very sad. But anyway, is it I miss him a lot or I miss a lot? And the answer is I miss him a lot is the correct answer. Okay. Let's look now at verb plus object plus infinitive, either with or without to. So if we can complete these sentences, will you let go to Susan's party this weekend? I promise I'll be back by midnight. Will you let me go to Susan's party this weekend? I promise I'll be back by midnight, by 12 o'clock. Excuse me. Let is followed by an infinitive without to. So let me go. I tried to persuade him come with us on holiday, but to no avail. But to no avail means without success. I tried to persuade him to come with us on holiday, but to no avail. After persuade, we need object and then infinitive. You persuade somebody to do something. We urge her enter the writing competition because her story was so good. We urged her to enter the writing competition because her story was so good. Urge somebody to do something. Okay? Let's have a look at some more. She dared her friend knock on the door and run away. She dared her friend to knock on the door and run away. You dare somebody to do something. This actually was a game, well, not very nice for the people whose door was being knocked, that young people used to do when I was young. It was called Chickenelli, I believe, I think, because if you didn't do it, you were a chicken. You were considered to be a coward, and all your friends would put pressure on you to do this. So she dared her friend to knock on the door and run away. Not a nice thing to do at all. My dad make practice piano before dinner. My dad made me practice piano before dinner. Made is followed by an infinitive without to. But be careful, because actually in passive sentences, I was made to practice piano before dinner. We use an infinitive with to. I was made by my dad to practice piano before dinner, and so on. So in active sentences, infinitive without to. In passives, infinitive with to. She helped understand my physics homework. She helped me understand my physics homework. Okay, some more on verb patterns now. Choose the correct form. You've got infinitive without to, infinitive with to, or gerund. I'm sorry, but I can't afford. Is it lend, to lend, or lending? Use some money at the moment. I'm broke myself. Broke, remember, means to have no money, either permanently or at a particular moment. Perhaps you haven't been paid yet, it's the end of the month, and so on. I can't afford to lend. To lend. Can't afford is followed by an infinitive. Number 2, can you imagine to live, or living in a place like the Bahamas? Well, imagine is followed by ing, a gerund, living. Yes, I can actually. I'd very much like to imagine living in the Bahamas, the golden beaches, beautiful palm trees, and all the rest of it. Thank you. Number 3, did you remember, is it put, to put, or putting your swimsuit in your bag? Well, here remember means not to forget, and where remember means not to forget, we use the infinitive. Remember to put your swimsuit in your bag. Remember can be followed by a gerund, but this is when you are recollecting or remembering a past event. For example, I remember going to the park with my grandmother, and so on. Okay, next one. We regret to inform, or informing you that your application has been unsuccessful. You've applied for the job, you've received a letter from the company saying, we're sorry, we regret. And when you're giving bad news, regret is followed by an infinitive. We regret to inform you. Regret when you're talking about something you wish you hadn't done in the past is followed by a gerund. I regret going to that party. I made such a fool of myself, for example. Regret going to the party. Number 5, I can't stand, meaning I hate. Watching horror movies. They're so lame. Lame means they're terrible. Usually they are. They're usually low budget, very bad special effects, and so on. And it's ing, watching. I can't stand is followed by ing. Number 6, you needn't. Is it apply, to apply, or applying for a visa to visit this country? Well, needn't is followed by an infinitive without to. Similar to modal verbs can, could, must, should, etc. It's followed by an infinitive without to. Apply. Okay, let's move on now to the vocabulary of work. As I said, we covered this in lesson 32. So you're going to get some words here, and I'd like you to complete the sentences. There's a little picture of an office there to get you in the mood. So here we go. This is such a something job. The pay sucks. It means it's terrible. The pay's terrible. Pay sucks. I don't think there's any chance I'll get something to manager. I'll get a better position within the company. So if there's no prospects in the job and the pay is not very good, we describe it as a dead-end job. Dead-end. A dead end is literally in a road where there's no exit. And this is metaphorically used with the job to say there's no chance of improvement or whatever. Dead end job. And then I don't think there's any chance I'll get a better position to become a manager, is to get promoted, to go up the company or corporate ladder, to get promoted. Okay, number 2. One of the something of this job is that we work blank. This means we can pick and choose when we start and finish work. So one of the benefits, which are non-financial benefits, which is perks of this job, is that we work, well, when you can pick and choose the time you start and finish, you work flexi time. Flexi time. Number 3, working as a teacher can be really something at times. I get a great deal of satisfaction seeing the kids learn and develop. So if a job gives you lots of satisfaction and so on, it is rewarding. This job is really blank. It's never dull, it's never boring, and there are always difficult obstacles to overcome. So it's got lots of hard obstacles to overcome, but things which keep you motivated. We describe the job as challenging. It's challenging. Okay, let's have a look at some more. I decided to something the job before my boss something me for constant late coming. So I'm constantly arriving late for work. So I decided to leave voluntarily. It's quit before my boss made me leave, not involuntarily. He's like, right, you out the door. My boss sacked me for my constant late coming. He was also angry because I'd been for months with a bad back, so you hadn't been at work because you were not well. Off sick. Number 6, I don't think I'll accept the offer of blank. I think I'd get bored if I stopped working and spent all my time at home. So normally we stop working permanently when we are in our 60s. Used to be 65 for men, 60 for women in the UK. Now I think it's 67 for both, I think. But if you have the possibility of stopping working before that age, it's called early retirement. Early retirement. Number 7, thousands of workers have been blank as the company attempts to downsize due to economic pressures. It's cutting back, closing factories, etc. With Christmas around the corner, these job losses, so the people have lost their jobs, couldn't come at a worse time. If you lose your job for economic reasons, you are laid off or made redundant. And number 8, my wife has been on something for the last couple of months after giving birth to a beautiful baby girl. So when you stop working because you've had a baby, for a woman, normally in Europe it's about 4 months, is maternity leave. We also have paternity leave, which is a couple of weeks, I think, for the father of the child. Okay. And lastly, the vocabulary of war and warfare, which we looked at in the last lesson. Okay, so here we go. Complete the sentences. First of all, nouns. Nice picture of a big tank there, again, to get you in the mood. So, soldiers who are found guilty of something can face extremely severe punishment for rebelling against their officers. So if you rebel against your officers, you refuse to obey their orders, etc., this is mutiny. There's a very famous film called Mutiny on the Bounty. This was a true story about a ship during the Napoleonic Wars where the sailors refused to take orders because they had been treated so badly. And the film stars Marlon Brando, I believe, as Fletcher Christian, who I think is one of the, can't remember if it's the leader of the mutiny or the captain of the ship, I can't remember. Okay, number 2. The two armies ended hostilities. They stopped fighting. Something was called. So when you decide to stop fighting, this is a ceasefire was called, and later a something was signed, an agreement between the two countries, in this case to end the war, but this one means just an agreement, a formal agreement between countries. A treaty was signed, bringing an end to 5 years of war. Number 3. In the Cuban blank, the rebels under Fidel Castro, who was still in power until fairly recently, he passed on his presidency, if you like, to his brother, and then subsequently died just last year or 2 years ago. And Che Guevara, the famous revolutionary, overthrew President Batista. So when the masses overthrow the government, it's a revolution, Cuban Revolution. Number 4, the American something was one of the bloodiest conflicts of the 19th century and saw the North defeat the South. So conflict in the same country, and here you had the northern states, the Unionist states versus the Confederacy, the slave-owning states in the south of the country. It's known as a civil war. War between two groups within the same country. You have the Spanish Civil War, the English Civil War, and so on. Number 5, the failed military blank led to the capture and imprisonment of several heads of the armed forces. So when the military tried to remove the elected government and seize power, it's called a coup or coup d'etat. Again, it's a French word that we have stolen. We don't have our own word for it. Okay. So, some more words. These are verbs this time. Besiege, bombard, break out, declare, release, retreat, storm, and topple. And there's a picture, I think it's the Siege of Istanbul again. The Parisian masses, the ordinary people of Paris, this is in 1789, something, the infamous prison, the Bastille. So the mass of the people charged into the prison and captured it. They stormed the infamous prison, the Bastille, at the beginning of the French Revolution, which saw King Louis XVI, and I'm hoping that's correct. I forgot to check. Well, if he was removed from power, he was toppled, or overthrown. It's the same meaning. The cavalry sounded the something. They decided that they would have to go, not advance, but go back after being continuously hit by cannon fire. They sounded the retreat. If they go back to where they came from, they retreated after being continuously bombarded by cannons. There's a famous poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade, during, I think, the Crimean War, where the light cavalry tried to charge the Russian, the British light cavalry tried to charge the Russian cannons, but they were cut to pieces by the cannons. Actually, with hindsight, not a particularly wise decision. Anyway, number 3. Although the Second World War, something in 1939, meaning it started, a war started, specific phrasal verb that talks about the start of a war. The USA, the United States of America, didn't something war on the Axis powers. The Axis powers are Germany, Italy, and Japan, until the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. That's the American spelling, H-A-R-B-O-R. In British English, it's with a O-U-R, in 1942. So the war started as it broke out, and the USA didn't declare war on the Axis powers. First, they declared war on Japan, and then subsequently Germany and Italy. Okay, number 4. As a gesture of goodwill, the government a number of prisoner of wars, POWs, remember, prisoners of war. So if they let them go free, they released a number of prisoners of war. In 1187, Jerusalem was something by the Muslim forces of Saladin, resulting in the recapture of the city from the Christians. The city of Jerusalem has been fought over for millennium, and recently Donald Trump decided unilaterally to recognize it as the capital of Israel, and obviously the Palestinians are very angry about this and so on. So it's been fought over for centuries. This appears in a film called Kingdom of Heaven, starring Orlando Bloom, among other people. And so Jerusalem, the city was surrounded by Saladin's forces, who fired ballistas and catapults, etc. It was besieged. Besieged is the verb. You can also say laid siege, or laid siege to in this case. You lay siege and besiege is the same thing. Okay, so that's it. That's it for this review lesson. There will be there is an accompanying test to go with this, as always. In the next lesson, lesson 36, we'll be looking at a grammar area, this time conditionals. If anything simply cannot go wrong, it will anyway. It's like Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. This is kind of in reverse. So we'll be looking at real and unreal. Some conditionals are real and some conditionals are hypothetical. They're unreal. And we'll be looking at mixed conditionals, where we have conditional relating to the present and one part of the conditional relating to the future, a combination of them both. All will come clearer in the next lesson. So thank you, as always, for tuning in. It's been my pleasure talking to you again today, and I look forward to you tuning into the next lesson. Bye-bye for now.